I'm Gavin, and this is MLS Fantasy Picks. Before we get into round 7 picks, here's a quick round 6 recap. A decent week for me, but a rough one missing the Fantasy Champions League. I missed it by 6 points. Oh well, now we try for the next qualifying period. I ended with 89 points for round 6. I had a weak rank of 432, and my overall rank is now 63. My budget increased from 123 million to 128.7 million. What went right? My Union bench picks. I was right about the Union turning things around against Portland last week, and they're looking good. Unfortunately, Blake left due to a concussion, but the Union backup goalkeeper is great. Wagner played well, and Gosdog had a goal. I also was pleased with my Atlanta stack and Evander's great score. What went wrong? My forward picks. And forward picks are a huge factor this season. Benteke landed me a 4, which was changed to a 5, and I was going to play Jovic, but Jovic didn't start, and my remaining picks were slim. I would have gone with Arango, but it was too late to swap him in, so I punted with Portland's Rodriguez, which was, wasn't expecting good things from that anyways. Still, not an awful week for me, though I did miss out on some big points by some other players. Let's take a look at the MLS Fantasy Picks leagues. Looking at the MLS Fantasy Picks Open League, shout out to FC Chicago Bulls Mexico with 111 points, as well as the Avondale Mushroom Stamps with 107 points. We've got some strong managers in the Open League. Don't forget, you can still join the Open League. Link is in the description below. And looking at the head-to-head league, we've still got 13 undefeated teams. Well done to everyone in both leagues. Alright, let's get into round 7. As always, let's take a look at some key considerations for this round. So we've got CONCACAF Champions Cup going on again. So I think we've got a few MLS teams playing this round. We've got Columbus, New England, and Miami. So just check out those games this week. See who's playing. They may get rested this weekend for the MLS regular season. So just keep that in mind. And then buy teams this week, we've just got Orlando City SC. So there are some good options, I think, at defense if you want to do some auto-roos or switcheroos. Some low-price 4.0 players. All right, let's get started with keepers. So at the premium price point, I've got Mr. Schulte himself from Columbus. Columbus are at home against DC. We'll see, how much lineups are affected this week due to the Champions Cup. I'm going to say most of the picks I'll outline in today's video, there's going to be a lot of, potential last-minute changes this weekend once lineups are shared by all the teams, and you'll probably want to make some pivots. So with Schulte, it depends on how strong the defense is looking, if they want to go with him. But yeah, he could be a good look. They're at home against DC. Columbus are still a very, very strong team in the MLS, one of the best. We'll see how Columbus's lineup looks this weekend. But I'm probably going to look to save a bit more money this week with keepers. So a good option is Takaoka at Vancouver at home against Toronto. There may be goals in both sides, of this game, but you could throw Takaoka on the bench for a keeperoo. I think they're at the 7:30 time. So see how that goes, and then always swap someone in on the field. Speaking of a late keeper, I've got Tim Melia from SKC at home against Portland. While Portland do look quite strong, there is that chance of a clean sheet with Kansas City, and I think they're the last game of the week, so he's a good option to put on the field in the back end of a keeperoo. Another late option, I think they're the 10:30 game on Saturday, is Fry from Seattle. They're at home against Montreal. So yeah, while Seattle may not look super strong this year, they're a late option for a keeperoo if you need someone. Or you could always go Fry to Melia. So yeah, you've got some options there. And then I've also got Roman Berkey from St. Louis. They're at home against Dallas, and Dallas hasn't looked great. They're missing a lot of their players. So I like Berkey on the front end of a keeperoo, possibly going to Melia on the back end. All right, let's get into defenders. As always, I feel like I always start with Julian Gressel. So as I said before, check lineups. We'll see how Inter Miami are looking at home against Colorado. So I like the matchup, even though Colorado's looking better. If Gressel is out of position, maybe he's in a good spot to link up with Suarez for some goal chances. Could be a good option, but he is a bit expensive. So as I said, keep an eye on those lineups. And then again, another expensive guy, he seems to make the list a lot, is Brooks Lennon. So Atlanta are away, and they're not as good away, but they are playing NYCFC, who haven't looked great. So I do like Lennon this week. it's hard to tell with a lot of what clean sheet options there may be. So Lennon's a good, defender you could throw on, hope for some bonus points as well as some goal creation chances. So I like Lennon. And then moving down to standard, I've got Hollingshead. LAFC are at home against the Galaxy in the El Trafico. So yeah, Hollingshead, LAFC, they probably aren't going to keep a clean sheet, but Hollingshead is usually involved in those, corner kicks, set pieces. He can usually find the back of a net. So yeah, not too expensive and a decent option. And then I've also got Jake Davis. So if you are looking to do some switcheroos, Jake Davis is playing that last game of the week. They're at home against Portland. He scored a banger of a goal last week. I don't know how often he would do that, but still, a good option that's not too expensive. And then I've also got Tim Parker from St. Louis, who are at home against Dallas. So St. Louis, I like their chances. Dallas haven't looked too great, missing some pieces. Maybe throw Parker and Berkey on the bench for a little switcheroo action. And yeah, see how they do. And then with the late option, Alex Rodon with Seattle Sounders. Alex Rodon, I feel like, can create a bit more chances on the attack. He hasn't looked the same as previous seasons from a fantasy standpoint. But yeah, maybe Seattle start to kick things up a notch, and Rodon could be, creating some chances from the wing. We'll see where he is placed in the lineup this weekend. And then I've also got Raposo from Vancouver at home against Toronto. So I think Raposo plays out of position sometimes, but keep an eye out on Vancouver's lineups as they quite frequently change. But he is, not too expensive. I expect goals between Vancouver and Toronto, and he could be involved with Vancouver. And then looking at budget options, Seattle is that late game, so if your bench doesn't hit, you can throw someone on your field and hope for a clean sheet. So Nuhu's one of your cheaper options with Seattle. And then same, type of deal here. You've got, I don't know how to say his name, Voloder from SKC. They're at home against Portland. One of the cheaper defenders who's been starting at SKC, could be a good late option for defense. All right, let's take a look at midfielders. So as always, Mr. Lucho Acosta. It's really hard to fade Lucho. Maybe you want to put him on the bench, but he's very, very expensive. I like him a lot. Since you're at home against the Red Bull, he's still such a strong fantasy player. And since you're at home, so maybe there's better chances with Lucho this week. And then I've got Ricky Puig. Ricky, he hasn't popped off the last couple of weeks. I think he's been sitting around a 5 or 6 the past couple of weeks, but I still like him this week. They're away at LAFC. It's El Trafico. Let's hope for a lot of goals and a lot of excitement and action. Speaking of excitement, Mr. Paintstill as well. As I usually say each week, I lean more to Puig, but Paintstill has been looking more attractive from a fantasy standpoint. I think he was involved in the goal for the Galaxy last week. So maybe you go both of these guys. Maybe you pick one. I'm leaning more towards Puig myself. And then Evander. Evander is away at SKC. I like Evander a lot. He's put up huge numbers the past couple of weeks and definitely worth the spend. And then moving down to standard, I've got Ryan Gaw from Vancouver. He looked a lot better last week, and I like that home matchup against Toronto. He's not too expensive yet and could be a decent bench play if you're not too confident yet in Vancouver. Someone who's a bit more, showing himself a strong midfielder at LAFC. I called him out last week as well as Atuesta. I think he's involved on set pieces and had another quite a banger of a goal as well last week. So they're at home against the Galaxy. I like Atuesta this week. And then Yeboah from Columbus. Maybe Cucho is out. Who knows? This weekend, Yeboah is one to create chances for Columbus. He's a danger on that wing. So he's not too expensive, and Columbus are at home against DC. See what lineups look like. Maybe he's a good shout. And then Mukhtar. I personally am still waiting to see if Mukhtar is a bit more consistent. I think he got a goal last week. It was off a corner, or it was off a cross that sort of just fell to his foot. So I'm not too impressed yet by Mukhtar or Nashville. They're against my Philadelphia Union. So I personally am not looking at Mukhtar this week. I still want to see a bit more from him. From a fantasy perspective. And then budget options. I feel like Rusnak is an okay look as like a fallback. They're at the the later game on Saturday and at home against Montreal. Haven't been too impressed by Seattle, but if you need someone to fall back to, Rusnak could be your guy. All right, let's take a look at forwards. Premium, Mr. Suarez. We will see if Miami, how much they're rotated this week due to Champions Cup, but they're at home against Colorado. If Suarez is starting against a Colorado defense, I like that matchup. I like Suarez. Cucho, also a good look if he's starting. Columbus are at home against DC. Columbus have been looking great. Cucho as well. But yeah, keep an eye on lineups. Otherwise, you may need to pivot to someone else. And then Jovic, as I've been talking about the El Trafico, I'm expecting a lot of goals. I hope Jovic is good to play this week. I'm not sure why he was scratched, maybe due to illness or injury. But yeah, keep an eye on lineups. I would not recommend pivoting to Miguel Berry if he doesn't start, but maybe someone more like a Gabriel Peck for the Galaxy. And then Denny Bouanga probably will be on everyone's team this weekend. LAFC are at home against the Galaxy. Highly recommend Bouanga this week. And then a bit more in the standard price range, you got João Klaus at home against Dallas. Maybe he starts to pick up a bit more. St. Louis gets a bit more of a rhythm against the struggling Dallas side. Could be a good option. And then I do like Campana. I'm expecting, Miami to rotate a good amount, and Campana usually steps up when the stars are out. So it could be a good look against a struggling or not so strong Colorado defense. Grasping at straws here from a budget standpoint. I'm still not impressed by Austin, though they did get their first win in a long time last week. Saw a great connection between Driussi and Rubio. So Rubio's not going to break the bank. They're at home against San Jose, who are known to let in some goals. So if you don't like the big name players this week, maybe look at someone like Rubio. And then Rossi. Rossi is also involved on set pieces for Columbus. When Cucho's out, we will see what Columbus looks like this weekend, as I said. But I like Rossi. He's not going to break your bank either. All right, let's finish off with captains. Getting started, Denny Bouanga. I'm sure a lot of people will captain him this week, especially with how strong forwards have been scoring this year in MLS Fantasy. I like Bouanga. Even if he doesn't score, he gets plenty of bonus points, so I think he's a safe captain pick. Up next, we've got Ricky Puig. Ricky's been letting me down a bit the past couple of weeks as my captain, but it's still El Trafico, Galaxy, LAFC. You're expecting a lot of goals here. And then Suarez, if the Miami lineup looks good and they're playing Colorado, he could be a good option for your captain. All right, everyone, that wraps it up for my Week 7 picks in tiers. Hope it was helpful. Let me know who you guys are picking in the comments below, and if you have any questions. So yeah, get those lineups set, get some good players in, and good luck. See y'all.